Welcome to the Photography Show TV studio, where I'm thrilled to be joined straight off of the superstage by Nadav Kander. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, you've been doing a question and answer session in the theatre just now. Your work, some of your recent work in particular, has been very involved in taking portraits of politicians. Barack Obama, obviously Donald Trump for the Time cover, Boris Johnson as well. I'm curious why you get to do portraits of politicians. Is it something that you are attracted to about taking pictures of politicians, about some of maybe the duality of the role, or is it because you've done some politicians, therefore you are the go-to guy for getting portraits of politicians?
I'm not, I doubt it's the latter. I think it's more, the politicians that I photograph are in amongst other people that I photograph, whether it's people on the street or whatever project that I might be involved in. So it's not like I photograph politicians that much.
Of course.
But the New York Times, I'm very close to. Time magazine, I'm very close to. And I think when they have a certain type of photograph that they want that might be very hard to get, or politically, excuse the pun, difficult to get, then I might be a very safe pair of hands for it. Also, I don't repeat myself very much. So I think, and I'm trying to move on all the time. And I don't really make celebrity portraits, so it somehow must fit with me. I've never really asked.
You have photographed a lot of actors as well. I'm thinking of a picture of Eddie Redmayne that I saw with the trees. How different is it when you're photographing an actor or a model, actually, compared, again, coming back to the politicians, when there's so much of what the politicians bring compared to a model who maybe you don't have a chance to research, or there's not so much need to research?
Well, it's a big question. That I would say that a model can be the hardest to photograph if you're trying to make a portrait. If you're trying to make something long-lasting or that really shows human condition, a model is often very, very adept at hiding all that and going through the moves that he or she is kind of used to. When you use a really great model like a Kristen McMenemy or something, they give much more of themselves. There's a real performance involved that can be far more interesting. But I'd say politicians are also incredibly difficult. They don't really understand the notion of atmosphere, while an actor or a musician really does. They understand that it's not the music they play, it's the atmosphere it creates. Or a painter realizes that too. Certainly an actor does. It's when they play something, it's about that third element, that atmosphere of a piece. And they realize that is what will make a picture successful or not. To just do a celebrity portrait of somebody well lit or overly lit or whatever is terribly easy and not interesting for anyone.
As a director, as a theatre director, as a TV director, but particularly theatre, you are trying to create an atmosphere of creativity in the rehearsal room so that the actors feel free to express themselves and maybe shed some of their self-consciousness or whatever. Sounds similar to what you're talking about here, but by atmosphere?
Well, atmosphere is just a fantastically interesting notion, really, when it comes to photography, because you can't see it. It's something that one feels. So it's really a heightened feeling. It's bringing theatre into a photograph, trying and letting, I guess, setting up the tableau for a viewer to look into their own narrative, to look into their own inner landscape when they are intrigued by a photograph. Portraiture, landscape, whatever. Think of a Franz Klein painting. It's just black lines on a canvas, yet they're so potent. Or a Rothko for the same. They show nothing figurative, certainly nothing documentary in it, but yet they're full of feeling.
Yes.
So that's the premise that I work under.
One of your very famous pieces of work over the last few years was over in China, documenting the Yangtze River and Sunday picnic. Particularly love that picture from an architectural point of view, as well as a kind of portraiture point of view of those people who were sitting there having their picnic. You're working on a river that's closer to home for those people who are watching here in the UK, and the Thames estuary at the moment. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
The estuaries, like you say, it's my local river. I wanted to work nearer home. I started reading about the river, Peter Ackroyd's book, and the amount of history, the liquid history that this river holds, is unbelievable. It's really unbelievable, and yet it seems to ignore us as it flows by. It's been a flowing river for 30 million years at least. It's hardly changed course in that time. It just keeps on going, doing its thing. And yet we as people come and go in a snapshot in time. So this sort of witnessing of this broadening out of a river, coming to the end of its journey, but is the end of a river maybe not the beginning? It's all of those metaphorical questions that I love about it. And yet while I photograph this body of water that, as I've said, ignores me as it moves on, you have this heft on your shoulder of unbelievable history, unbelievable writing of Conrad, of Dickens, painting of Constable and Turner. It's endless when you delve into it. So I love the human condition within that landscape. It's a grim place that people have toiled and has had so much to do with England and London and going back to the Romans. It's amazing.
I live by the River Thames myself, Kingston upon Thames, and it's a beautiful stretch. We moved into our house before we even saw the house. We just walked on a little stretch. Love it. I look forward to seeing your work when that comes out. But for now, Nadav Kander, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.